Brought to you with the compliments of Carter's General Store and Crumb's Bakery.
It's sunny, it's windy, and it's beautiful. Welcome to our National Botanical Gardens. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, I'm pleased to have you along. We are continuing that special journey as we consider the conversion of this space into a thing of beauty, all for your enjoyment and all for your pleasure. Now, speaking about conversion, the National Conservation Commission has a major role to play in all of that. Ryan Alves is the general manager. He takes that role seriously.
Well, the NCC and the Botanical Gardens, we work, well, hand in glove, very closely. Mr. Nigel Jones, he's the technical officer for that department. However, we provide the personnel, the equipment, and whatever plants are required for this initial stage. At the moment, we are doing a passive management where it is not installation of the gardens according to the master plan. It is essentially making the area usable for persons to come, they do the walking, they do the jogging, people come to sit, read, persons have religious meetings, etc. at the gardens. So we do maintain the grounds just for those persons to be comfortable when they come to use it. So far, we've had a kind of a melting pot of activity there, the persons doing different things. We observe to see what people are doing, how they are interacting with the space, and then we make adjustments to make them comfortable in where they want to go. You will go and you will see certain photo spots, as we call them. For each area, we want to make sure that once persons are using the space, that yes, you have the lawns prepared, you have benches, put the seating where we see people tend to congregate, and then they utilize the seating accordingly. And then you have a picturesque environment. We did a lot of our initial planting for the Soca Monarch. That was back in 2019, and we just maintained those gardens so far.
This work here that you see here, the gardens, the bougainvillea thing, and we start this here, we bring this here from nothing to something. And we as a team here, we are very proud of where we are going, and we're looking to do better. When we start working here, you couldn't even tell like what type of flowers that was bougainvillea, bare mossy trees, cuscus grass, some of everything, right? And not only that, we as a team that came here that was ain't no really much as the work. We put our hands on deck and we bring this here from nothing to something, and we are proud of it right now. And edging, you couldn't even know the garden. There wasn't a garden bed nor no lawn. Everything was all in one. See the separation now? This is the line there. They show you that the separation, and we still continue. Understand? He leaves his record, he leaves, because this is where everybody's drive through and see the first like point you drive through here that you're going batter on. So you gotta keep out here as clean as possible, and as you go down through, you're gonna see different other sets of teams working. Yeah, he's very proud. And they got see, special thanks to Joanne for supplying us with our tools, Springer, that over us, everyone.
So right now, it is a matter of just making persons comfortable in using the space. And that has been working out so far until we get down really to the nitty-gritty to install the garden the way the architects have designed it, master plan, to then start to formally prepare the areas for the gardens. Most of the internal lawns have been prepared. There are some areas which were left in their natural form, which are the gully areas within the park. The perimeter is what we have focused on taking most of the vegetation from, which was mainly river tamarind. And Mr. Jones, he, along with the Ministry of Agriculture, they have been going in to take out this invasive species. So they went in and selectively cleared areas.
First thing on mornings when we come to work, we go in the huddle and we make round things right, because as you know, cooperation is how everything is get done. We have a team here, loggers, choppers and workers, and that's how we get this job done professional for Botanical Garden and for Barbados.
Choppers now going, so as a logger and they rotate now. It's teamwork here, always teamwork.
Here because we've been home for a while working at Idle Hall and getting paid walkers, and the balance was $0.00. So we can't take it anymore. We come here to give Botanical the best and professional work. Well said and done. But Team Botanical, love Barbados.
Basic swords do all this work here. Basic.
Here, 6 swords. Blade man. Blade man. 6 swords. Break. Bear this team here. Clean all down here.
This team of guys has been doing a very good job of clearing the area of the invasive species as they prepare the gardens just for you, once again, for your enjoyment and for your pleasure, to be shared with your family and friends. So what is happening immediately after they have cleared the area?
And as they cleared, then our teams now with the manpower go in and they kind of manicure the areas and keep the area in looking relatively decent until right now we can get into the rainy season and start to do some replacement planting. Because every year you would have some issues with die-off of plants relative to disease or drought or whatever the case may be. So we go in and then do the replanting in those areas.
The layout and designs of the various areas have been done by a number of Barbadian architects with keen eye for details. This master plan was presented to the authorities. How is the National Conservation Commission meeting the needs of the master plan and its overall needs of beautifying the island? How are we achieving our goal of planting 1 million trees?
The master plan is complete, has been accepted. There are the details now that we have to work on, because we have general concepts. We know where you have the People's Garden, where you have the Coconut Grove, where you have the amphitheater. The details of each of these now to say how many plants, which type of plants, which plants go where, and which combinations of colors we're going to use, fragrances, etc. Those are the details that we require now to do the installation. It's like having a house plan. You have an overall layout, you know that there's a bedroom here, there's a kitchen here, but what type of cabinets do you want? What color are you going to put in the kitchen? What tiles are you going to use? Those are the details that we require to do the installation of the garden. Now, it becomes a lot more complex day by day when you're looking at maintaining some components and installing a new layout. So this where you would have different crews. So one team would deal with the installation, another team is dealing with the maintenance, and then there's a team that's behind the scenes, which is in the nursery. They're the production line, which produces the plants that we require to install in the garden. And they're constantly going. Now, we have commercial components and non-commercial components. We've seen our commercial components increase marginally. There's the demands for the nursery. But our non-commercial, which is the ones that we're not paid for, those are the ones that have exponentially increased. And we've seen the tree program, the million trees, we started doing that. There's the botanical gardens, there's the roadways, beautification. So all of these different projects require these inputs from the nursery. We have built some capacity out to build up for the botanical gardens because we know that was coming on stream. Then we have the million trees, so we had to increase our capacity with the tree nursery.
Barbados does not exist in the world alone, and the entire world is in a climate crisis, and we are going to play our part in fighting it. The challenge that I want for us as a nation on the eve of we gathering, on the eve of our 53rd anniversary, is to show the world that this small nation can rise to the challenge of playing its part in the climate crisis. And that even though we are small, and even though we are only 166 square miles, that we know how we can each plant a tree or two or three or four or five or six or seven or 8 or 9 or 10. And when you add 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, we are going to eventually get to more than
a million.
Let me hear you, more than a million. And that is the spirit, because you now are the first people I have chosen to be able to work and walk with us on this journey, because you are now soldiers in this battle to claim our earth, to love our earth, and above all else, to love our 166 square mile island.
And we built to a point where we can sustain ourselves where that is concerned without affecting our commercial operation. But now we have some additional projects that are coming on stream, which we recognize, okay, so far we have tripled our capacity. However, we're still falling short for some of these other projects that are coming within the next year or so. So we now have to go and add greater capacity. Fortunately, we have the space to do so, and the personnel, we have the same number of persons who work in the nursery. What we have done is look at the efficiency of use of the personnel. Where we can automate things like irrigation, we do the automated irrigation. So persons who used to water by hand before are no longer doing that. So they can now be utilized looking at propagation of other plants. We've diversified our propagation to increase our tissue culture lab use. Our lab was focused heavily on ferns, and which was their specialty. I think they have mastered that so far. But we now diversifying a little bit more to include musa, so that we can put some of these things in the botanical garden, different types of banana, plantain, figs, etc. With the help of the Ministry of Agriculture, who kind of gave us some guidelines as what they were doing. So we collaborate a little bit. They give us some guidelines of what they were doing. We mimic that, and then we progress that way. So there are synergies that we have. There's a lot of collaboration that needs to go into it, because we have other entities that are doing similar things. Reference to the fruit tree production, soil conservation within the Ministry of Agriculture, they're the specialists in that area. We have not gone the route of doing what they do, but doing additional trees. Our focus was more on the horticulture end, while they were more on the agriculture end. But we see now for the need to increase our fruit tree production because the soil conservation, they have capacity up to only a certain amount. We have a lot more space, we have a lot more personnel, and we said, well, okay, if they can do up to 200,000 and we require 1 million plus, then we have to pick up the slack. They're increasing their capacity, we're increasing our capacity. So I think we are on the right track. Given the resources that are available to us, I think we're doing very well, but we're aiming to do better.
Aware of the delays caused by COVID-19 and the setback, Ryan Alves gives a sense of the progress of the work now being done in the gardens.
Well, the Botanical Garden, it is an exciting project. It is a very difficult one. We've had to endure a lot of harsh drought seasons. A lot of the areas that we have planted, I think mainly last year, then with the lockdowns as well, that put a damper on things because we were progressing, and then, you know, when you don't care for a plant, sometimes you get a lot of dieback. So it did teach us some lessons before our plant selection. We recognize that when it becomes dry in the botanical garden, it becomes very dry. When there is rain, it becomes very wet. So it is the extremes of environments. And we've had to adapt, look at these specific areas of drainage and where you have ponding, etc., to know which areas we can plant, which areas we cannot plant, how the seasons change, even how the whole ecosystem works. Because you have some areas where you have the monkey troops, and they forage in those areas. You have areas where you have birds, which tend to come in the rainy season, in the areas where water settles for a little bit, and it changes from time to time. So every time you're there, you see something new. And we look at the biodiversity of the area. We do have a lot of beehives that are there, natural ones within the gully areas. We do have apiaries here. So we have been looking to see how the health of the honeybees there, how often they move. We get a lot of swarming, and we do a little bit of research as to how they forage within the areas. And the trees and the plants that they forage on, then we look to plant and replant those areas.
A major component of this area of beauty will be the International Botanical Gardens.
Well, the International Gardens, that's to the eastern side. That has been recently cleared of the River Tamarind. We have not had any details for that area as yet. Mr. Nigel Jones, he's working with other government agencies to determine how it will be used, who would use it, what areas are allocated, etc. They would have their own specific garden designs, etc., and how they want to kind of utilize the space and create something that is reflective of either their ecosystems or their culture and things like that. And for our part, we are there with the manpower just to maintain it as they evolve. So that is the second component. Now we are heavily focused on the national side, which is the western end, and we just do the maintenance on the eastern end to ensure that the area that has been cleared and the river tamarind removed doesn't come back. So when you look over there now, you will see a lot of areas which are bush removed. You still see a lot of mature trees because those are the ones that we wanted to keep. And from there, during the rainy season, then we look to start to train the grasses to do open lawn areas. So when persons come to see, they would see what the landscape is like, how the rolling hills or the water courses and all that. It would be clear to them to see how to then take this canvas and make something that is reflective of their own countries. I think moving forward, we have to add some more structure to the use of the gardens. It is not a challenge right now. I think it's with a large space and the numbers that we are utilizing it, you don't have a lot of conflicting activities. But as it becomes more popular, then we will have to almost go like zoning, where people can go, where they cannot go, what activities can take place in those areas. That's the level we have to maintain once it becomes increasingly popular. Because at the end of the day, it is there for people to use comfortably. And it is, as you know, if you have persons doing kite flying with the noise, it will be difficult for persons to have their prayer sessions and vice versa. So we need to make sure that we cover those things, observe, learn, see what is happening, and then make the necessary adjustments to make sure that everyone has an enjoyable time at the Botanical Gardens.
And that is the correct approach. After a period of observation, you make the necessary adjustments as you seek to make this space a beautiful one for the people. One such individual who is firmly connected to this spot and who has used her talents and expertise to design beautiful spaces, and whose good work you will come to enjoy as you have that aesthetic experience here. Her name is Diane Clark.
So we are in the National Botanical Gardens here in Barbados. It's in Codrington in St. Michael, and it is 257 hectares. It is a beautiful site. There is rhythm, and it highlights so many of the things about Barbados that we are accustomed to. Barbados is a flat country. It's a country of plateaus that rise concentrically from the ocean. And one of the things that we see in the gardens as we look around is we see the sloping graces of our country, Barbados. We have areas where the rock is exposed, the bedrock is exposed, and it reminds us that we stand on a limestone island. There is something pivotal about this country. We are in the center of St. Michael, basically. And as you stand here today, you can hear the birds chirping. You have this sense, the very present sense that while you are still in town, you are removed into an area of nature that allows you to reconnect with who you are. And this is our National Botanical Gardens. So this current master plan that has been done for the gardens was done as a result of the Prime Minister asking that the 6 landscape architects would come together. And that would be myself, Diane Clark, Ruth Durant-Sobers, Jeff Ramsey, Kevin Talma, Andre Kelshaw, and Carolyn Tomlin. We also asked one engineer on the island who we had all worked with at some point in time if they could overlook certain things, because I have worked on large scapes before, and one of the things that I have always noted is that there is no large functional space that can be effectively designed without the input of an engineer. So we asked Donna Thorne to sit in with us, and she did. The garden comprises a number of different functions. We have areas where you can have easy recreation. There will be an amphitheater that should easily be able to hold somewhere between 30 to 50,000 people. We will have a private functional area as well. There will be an open space for recreation or for events should they be held here. We also have trails that run through the entire property. And these trails allow you to walk, to hike, to run. They take you along the eastern edge of the gardens, along Waterford Boulevard. And that allows you to feel the rhythm and the connectivity of Barbados. As we stand now, we can hear a siren passing, but it's passing from a distance. So it reminds you that you're still connected with the rest of the world. The gardens have, of course, a botanical component. And we call it the lung. It stretches from the eastern wall of the Codrington main house all the way back through around to the stones that the Prime Minister, Mia Amor-Motley, and President Kenyatta first planted, Baroness Scotland, and of course the then Minister of Environment, Trevor Prescott. It comprises an aquatic garden, xerophytic garden, which is the plants that grow naturally in the area that don't require too much of an effort. They would be more like cacti and bougainvillea, that type of stuff. And then we have the gramineaceous and the rooftop garden. A rooftop garden becomes increasingly more important as we continue to live on this earth, partly because we are trying to incorporate a cooling system which comes out of Africa and has been perfected for the Western world, I think. They think it has been perfected in parts of Europe, but is a system that is incorporated into a lot of old houses in Africa, and it cools the property in the heat of the day. So we have a rooftop garden. How we get that implemented now will be an issue for the engineer, because it will have to be on a suspended foundation. This is an area that we know is in a zoned capacity, so we are looking to make sure that we cover the necessary issues for the Barbados Water Authority, and we don't infringe on the new plan that they're bringing out. Then we go on and we have a regenerative garden, we have a flowering garden, which is the angiosperm garden, and then we have a sensory garden. The sensory garden is supposed to reconnect people with their senses. Quite often in the fast-paced world that we live in, we forget to take a minute and to breathe. But more importantly, we forget that our 5 senses give us the important import of who we are and connect us to the ground. My sister has a saying that you should take your shoes off every day and stand up on the ground and remember that you are connected to something that is greater than you are. And the sensory garden is supposed to do that. We hope that all of the gardens in the botanic lung, such as they are, will reinforce education, that they will reinforce the value of nature, the built landscape, the natural landscape, and the basic functions of rhythm, how we live. The garden is also intended to be used by every person of every capacity, no matter their perceived disability or their ability. So we will have paths that are wide enough. We will have areas where for every section where there's an area for steps, there will also be a ramp in that area to make sure that no one is left behind and no one feels that they cannot have the use of a particular area. Within the car parks, we're going to be using handicapped areas, which is also necessary, but we're also going to have a section that is going to look out for those people who have recovered recently from an illness. And the pandemic has taught us, certainly an incident I had taught me a couple years ago, that you have to always be aware of the people in your midst who may not have a disability and so are not allowed to have a handicap sticker, but those who are unable by virtue of an illness. It could be a pregnancy, it could be a grief that they can't walk very far, and you have to take care of them as well. Make sure that they have the rhythm and the area to move forward. The park is also really good for exercise. I just saw the young man running and he reminded me of that. So we have a number of people, it's become a multi-use area. A number of people use it for exercise. In the mornings, if you come from 5 o'clock in the morning, you see everyone out here exercising at their own pace in different areas. And in the midst of a pandemic, the wonderful thing about this particular garden is the space. You are in here, the carrying capacity is fantastic. And the carrying capacity is the ability of an area to absorb the number of people within it without feeling crowded. And this space gives you that. The hidden valleys in here, and I'll call them valleys, although they don't quite qualify as such, but the rolling aspect of the hillside makes you feel that way. We're going to be bringing out an amphitheater which is designed by Kevin Talma, as is the Great Lawn on the other side. And the amphitheater is part of the first phase of implementation. The gardens will also have a woodland component. And in that woodland component, we're going to put up statues. The hope is that those statues will be able to reach a cross-section of people on the island who we may not have heard about previously, but who are equally important to this country's development, or equally important. It might be the granny who has taken care of 20 people in her village, but someone who has hitherto been unrecognized. But we want everyone to be a part of the rhythm of this garden. We have a centenarian who also planted a tree in the garden. We want people to be involved in this. This is our garden. This is a part of Barbadian history. We have the ability to make history by creating a botanic garden, a multi-use section of Barbados in the center of the island where most people don't think of coming to chill out, to enjoy themselves. But we have the ability in this generation, at this time, to create something that is amazing for all of us.
We could not agree with you more, Diane, being able to use that canvas and create something that will be lasting. Thank you very much. In our final episode, Diane will detail the designs of the garden. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for staying with me. I look forward to having you with us again next week for that final episode. Goodbye.
Brought to you with the compliments of Carter's General Store and Crumbs Bakery.